and welcome to episode 38 of the Kingfisher Knits podcast. My name is Madeleine and I'm talking to you from my home in Memphis, Tennessee, in the United States. That's really strange to say. We've only moved here relatively recently. I'm originally from the UK, but I've been living in Switzerland with my family for quite some time. So I recently arrived to the US. As I said, I live here with my husband and we have 3 children. And if you are coming back to watch me again, thank you so much. If this is the first time checking me out, thank you very much for giving me a little bit of your time to come and see what we chat about over here, which is mostly knitting. And I'll try and remind myself to say at the beginning that at the very underneath this video on YouTube, I put all the links of the places that you can find me. So where you find me on Ravelry, where I am Madeleine Windsor, we have a Ravelry group that is called Kingfisher Knits group on Ravelry. I'm Kingfisher Knits on Instagram, but all of those links are down below, also including my website. I really wanted to try and record quicker than I've managed to again. Part of what was holding me back is that I did get a new laptop, so I've always been recording on my laptop because that's what I had available to me. I know that you can record on your phone, but I've never been one to buy fancy phones with big amounts of memory, and it just seemed like another step to record on the phone, transfer to the computer. I'm up for all of that when I can, but the reality is I've always had small children. I now have a small baby. He's 6 months old. So I didn't want the barrier to recording and uploading videos to be too high. So I've been trying to record using my iPhone camera, but saving it directly to my laptop so that I don't have that transfer issue, but it's not working out, and I'm not super happy with the quality of the video on my new laptop. Apparently it's a known thing. I didn't buy the laptop for the camera, but I thought that the camera quality would be better. At least the sound quality should be better, because there was a real issue with my last video, and I apologise for that there was this constant noise in the background because basically the laptop I think was overheating. So as you've probably come to realise if you've been a frequent viewer of this, this is here to chat about knitting and show off knitting and yarn and the things that we enjoy making, and it's not all singing or dancing in terms of, production and what have you, but I'm just grateful to those of you who still like to come along and watch with me. Watch what I'm up to, I mean. I have a fair few things to show you and I don't have a ton of time to record. I'm going to try not to rush, but I do want to encourage people that if I do gloss over something or you're interested in something, please put a comment in either below this video on YouTube or pop over to Ravelry. You can start your own threads in the Ravelry group if you want to. I did used to put show notes there, but I decided I just keep the show notes below this video on YouTube. I have the links to everything that I talk about. They link to project pages on Ravelry or to companies that I've spoken about, the yarn that I've used, just so you know where you can find it, and what have you. That I put it directly below the video here on YouTube, but that doesn't mean if you have a question about a video that I record that you can't pop it in to me on Ravelry if you want to, or you can go below this video on YouTube if that's what's best for you. I don't normally chit chat quite so much at the beginning of my episodes. Anyway, things are a bit all over the place. I have a baby and I'm making that the excuse. All right. I typically start by talking about whips, so I'm going to stick with that. I have I have 3 projects on the needles at the moment that I'm actively working on. Again, one little comment, I'm currently separated from my stash. All of our belongings have arrived in the US, but we are living in a rented apartment. This is also why I have a kind of a not optimal setup here in terms of lighting and everything, because if I wanted to sit so that you saw all of me, in the light, and I was looking, the light was shining directly on whatever I was showing you, then you'd have to see a lot of what's going on in the rest of my place, because this is really an open plan apartment. And again, you don't want to be distracted by all of those things in the background. So this is the best setup that I can manage right now. Okay, so the first project that I would like to show you is a little baby knit that I've been making. This is for a friend of mine who is having her first baby, and I don't think she watches this, but I'm not going to say exactly who it's for. I wouldn't probably anyway, unless it was somebody that you might have a chance to know from the knitting community. And this is living in a brand new to me project bag. So I am generally not trying to buy lots of things at the moment. We've just moved to a new country. There's a lot of things that we have to, focus our time and attention and money on. But this is a bag from the lovely Fat Squirrel, Amy Best. She has a fantastic podcast on YouTube. She seems to be an all-round wonderful person. And back here a few weeks ago, there was the SSK Super Summer Knit Together kind of retreat, and it has a marketplace. It's in Nashville, Tennessee. I couldn't go because it's a full 3-hour drive from here. But a friend of, I know the people, I've met the people since I've moved here who run that. And Amy of Stranded Directs, Amy Florence, was over here in order to visit friends and also to attend the retreat. And I asked her when she went there to pick up a bag for me, because then she was coming back closer to where I'm living now. And so she could hand it off to me. So I really wanted a sweater bag, but I didn't want to take up too much of their time, trying to choose a bag for me remotely. I love this print, and she had it in her sort of sock size, which is it's a generous sock size. It's a good one skein project. You could fit a couple of skeins in there, perhaps, at least at the beginning. But I really, really love this print, and I can now see the quality of the Fat Squirrel bags. They are really, really beautiful. It's a really this is a beautiful canvas. It has a simple sort of what looks like a sort of it's not linen, but it's that kind of rusticy cotton finish on the inside. It has a lovely zip. I'm really happy to have it. I love this print so much. So living in here, I'm trying to use up the leftovers of my Bien Aimee yarn, which I used to make my Parisian Dreams sweater, which I showed off on the last episode. So please go back and have a look at that if you would like to see that. Anyway, again, for completeness, this is the tag. This is the Merino Sport base. It is 100% superwash merino, a lovely high twist yarn, and this is the Vespa Graffiti colorway. I still have this much left. I haven't weighed it to see how much that is. I mean, it cannot be more than 25 grams, I would say. So I had 4 skeins of this. I used just over 3 to make my sweater, the Parisian Dreams. So I've been making this little baby knit. I'm calling it, I have actually finished all of the knitting, but I have to finish the hem and obviously weave and ends and block. So it's a little hard to show off. Let's get it. So I still have the waist yarn in there from when I put the sleeves on hold. I tend to leave my waist yarn in so that I have an easy place. If I have to pull back the sleeve, I can pull it back easily. If I have a place that I measure, normally it tells you to knit your sleeve until X inches, centimeters. So it makes it really easy to measure that. So this is the baby Sunnyside cardigan. It is a design, it's a free pattern on Ravelry. It's by Tanis. I can't remember her surname, but it's the Tanis of Tanis Fiber Arts. And it's a free pattern in a few sizes, I think, and it has 2 different options. It has an option with a lace panels, basically where you see these cables, or the cable version. So I made this cable version. So you have the cables on the front and back between the raglan seams, and at the front along the edge of the button bands. So it does have buttonholes. I haven't put buttons on it yet. I need to find some buttons that I like for this. This colour doesn't show up one perfectly on screen. I know that before. You also have different options here for cuffs. So I did garter, it has a garter at the top. So I'm going to show backwards because that's easier. It has garter at the top, and I did garter cuffs on the sleeves, but on the body I decided to do a little picot hem, which is one of the options. So you have a purl row which will basically be the turning row, and then this is going to get folded under. You do a couple of rows, and then you have your yarn over knit 2 together row, that will be folded over and hemmed here on the inside, and that creates this little picot edge. So I still have to do that for this to be totally finished. I made it in the 3 to 6 month size, I'm fairly confident. And yeah, so that was a good way to use up. So I've got quite a long amount of yarn left here, because when I cut the ball off, when I finished the body, when I bound off the body, I made sure I had definitely enough to hem up that picot edge along the bottom. So that is whip almost FO number 1. Okay, then my second whip was my new cast on last time around, which was a ridiculously small amount of knitting, if you recall, but I have been working quite a lot on my Elton cardigan. This is a design by Locatelli, and I might put the picture again if I remember, but I'm using yarn from Norne Yarns. Norne is a Norwegian hand-dyed yarn business, and I am using 2 different bases because the Elton cardigan is knit. The original sample was knit in single ply merino fingering weight yarn and a lace weight mohair silk yarn. The original is knit in yarn by Bien Aimee. So this is the Dara again, Dara Dargyod colorway. So I've got the same colorway for both of the bases. So that's the base there. I had 1 skein of the lace weight because that's what it said that I should need for my size, and I bought 2 skeins of the single ply merino. The single ply merino, actually it's not single ply merino, it's single ply yarn fingering weight, but it is a 65% superwash merino, 20% silk, 15% yak. The colour is not too off there. It's showing it a little bit more towards the brown. It's a little bit more towards rich purpley burgundy, but it's fairly accurate. You're just seeing it a little bit duller. This yarn is fatter, I would say. It's a bit thicker than your normal single ply merino. So it's a normal single ply merino that you tend to find base around will have 366 meters and 100 grams. This is a 120 gram skein and it has 480 meters. I have been very much enjoying working with both of these yarns. I'm loving the color. I know that some people have had some issues with running out of yarn. I think especially running out of the mohair, and I wanted to mention it here just in case some people decide to knit the Elton, in that the original yarn that, although she always tells you the meters that are used, some people just look at the skeins that they need. And I think for the first couple of sizes, or 2 or 3 sizes in the pattern, she lists that you need 1 skein of your lace weight yarn, but the put up, so the amount of meters that you get of the Bien Aimee lace weight mohair is higher than most indie dyed 50 gram skein. So there's more meters on that skein. So make sure you look at the meters if you're choosing your Elton sizing. Make sure you look at the meters that you actually need of the lace weight, just so you know that you might need 2 skeins of your mohair. Of course, in some sizes you need 2 skeins anyway, but I just wanted to mention it because I have seen people running out of the mohair, and I think that might be one of the reasons. Anyway, so I'm not going to run out the mohair, I'm sure of that now, and I'm knitting the extra small. This is because it's a pattern which has quite a lot of positive ease, and I didn't want that much positive ease. But what I did need, of course, is her sleeve circumference is such that I do need to make slightly bigger sleeves. So I've made sleeves that are kind of a hybrid between the small and the medium. That's easy to do because it is a boxy pattern, and it started at the top, and when it got to a certain length, you were meant to join front and back pieces, and I just made sure I knit to the length that she suggested for the small medium, or there and thereabouts. I tried it on and I decided that was fine. I have had a couple of issues with the fingering weight yarn. I might not go into it this time, I might wait until I've finished, but anyway, here we are. this is my Elton Cardigan. I'm showing you from the back first so you can see that the body is finished. I have pretty much knit it to the length that was suggested, which for me is a touch shorter than I normally would knit garments. I would not call it cropped. Also, I know it's going to grow on blocking because this is knit at a loose gauge. But I was happy with that. I tried it on and I thought I want to go with that. I'm really happy with the way that this fabric looks. I think it's really, really beautiful. I know it's going to be a super lightweight garment, but it's going to be quite warm because of the mohair. So I can put on the sleeveless side. It doesn't have its neckband or button bands yet. Those we picked up at the end, but you can see that I will have, I just plop that around there, I will have a bit of positive ease because it's not adhering straight to my body, and this is not, the seam here is a drop sleeve design that's not all the way up here, so it's going to have, and I've got enough room there for my arm to make the sleeve, but it's not going to be as boxy as is kind of just it's designed to be. And I'm really happy with that. I have started the first sleeve. The sleeves in the pattern are around about here. I'm just going to keep trying it on. I don't want full length sleeves because that's not how I sort of see this cardigan, but I think I probably want about 3/4 length, so I'm just going to keep trying it on. So these are my sleeves so far. I've just marked here where I've made my decreases, and yeah, I'm not massively enjoying working magic loop on the sleeves with these. I don't know, it's just, you're also with yarn management and everything. What I have not done is alternate skeins. I didn't need to alternate skeins with the mohair because I only have one skein. I have not been alternating skeins, and so far I still have this much left of my first skein of the fingering weight. I think I'm going to manage to get both sleeves out of it, but I'll probably need the second skein for, oh, that's got a bit messy, second skein for picking up for the neckband and button band. To my eyes, they really look very, very similar. And given that I was already you're already doing 4 row stripes of the mohair and the single ply yarn, fingering weight yarn, I didn't want another. I knew if I had another ball attached, I was never going to get anywhere with this project. I'm quite happy with how quickly I've been knitting through it, given that I've had several days, not several days a week, but several days in the last month where I haven't knit at all, not on this, not on anything. So I'm really looking forward to this being done. One other thing I wanted to mention about this is that it calls for a tubular bind off everywhere, so all of the edges. I really like the look of a tubular finish. I have worked on one pattern that one garment that I knit last year, or earlier this year I finished it. Yeah, the Serafina top by Irmian Design, that called for tubular bind off, and I did the sort of traditional tubular bind off, which involves normally a couple of setup rows, and then basically you end up slipping stitches so that you're, when looking at it from the right side, your knit stitches are on one needle and your purl stitches on the other, so you have to go across slipping all of your stitches, all of your stitches onto 2 sets of needles, and then you Kitchener them together. It looks beautiful. It's a sewn technique, and but the bit I didn't like, I don't love having a sewn bind off, working a sewn bind off, but I don't mind it. But what I didn't like is how many steps there are. And I have in the past done an Italian bind off for brioche mostly, but again, brioche is a 1x1 rib. So here we have a 1x1 rib, and I've done the tubular bind off. So you see there that it is, seamless. There's no visible bind off stitches. But I did the Italian bind off. It's still a sewn bind off, but there's no setup to it. There's no slipping stitches off onto different needles. So for me, it's much easier to do. It takes a tiny bit of effort to my brain to remember the process. It's something which I'm considering doing a tutorial for because I really, really like it. I've used and I've enjoyed using it. So if that's something that people are interested in, I will put that on my higher list of priorities of things that might be nice to record a tutorial for. I do have a tutorial out there for the Italian cast on because I've used that in brioche pattern of mine in the past, and I really like it. Anyway, Elton, I had hoped to have this done within Stash Dash finishes in 3 days, so that won't happen. But that's okay. If you want to know more about Stash Dash, I talk about it more in the previous episode, and it's about to be over, so we can talk about it again next year. I am just packing that back away into the project bag. Final whip for this week is a sock cast on. I need to have a pair of socks on the needles almost always because that's the easiest portable knitting if I'm out and about or I just need to grab something really easy. And I had mentioned, I think I mentioned it last time, that I was thinking of doing a Christmas in July, or well, Christmas in August, because it's not July anymore, but I think I had the original idea when it was July. Anyway, so I have this beautiful gumball of yarn from Twisted Limone. Twisted Limone is a self-striping, I think she does do some yarn sometimes which is not self-striping, but she's known for self-striping yarn. She has an Etsy store based in the UK, and she gives these amazing gumballs. This is her Christmas Carol colorway. I'm just making sure, yeah, Christmas Carol colorway, and this is in her tangy self-striping sock yarn. So the base is 75% superwash wool, 25% nylon. So it's not a merino wool, it's just wool. And you get 400 meters for 100 grams. I prefer a plumper fingering weight yarn generally for socks. So this is more like, it does feel softer to me personally than like an Opal or a Regia slightly, but it's more like that. And certainly in terms of plumpness, it's like that. Anyway, so this is self-striping yarn. I haven't got very far, but I have cast on, and I've decided to do not a totally plain vanilla sock, because although it's self-striping, so you already have something fun going on, this is Christmassy, and I just thought it would be really nice to do just a little something. So I'm just every time there's a colour change, I am slipping every 7th stitch, because I'm just a 56 stitch sock. So that worked out well for me. So I have a slip stitch and then knit 6, slip 1. So you're slipping with the yarn in back, and that just makes this little colour blip. So yeah, haven't got very far using my favourite sock needles, ChowGoo mini twists, 2.25 millimeters, which is a US 1. So not much to say about that. Okay, FOs. I have one proper FO in that I finished it since I last spoke to you. To show you, I finished my socks that I was knitting. These are a pair of socks, 56 stitch sock. I knit them cuff down, so cast on up here. I'm using Mina Phillips mini heel flap adjustment, which is a short row, a German short row heel with a tiny heel flap in there. So you do end up with this little mini gusset here. I did this in garter stitch, so every stitch, apart from the cuff obviously here, is knit stitches. So it's just knitting every row. And this is a Regia self-patterning yarn. I haven't grabbed the ball band this time around, but again, I will link to my project page and it will be written down below. I'm just putting one sock on a sock blocker here, but this is the other sock. And I didn't try and make them matching. They're slightly offset from each other. But again, these are quite busy pattern socks, and I really like them. Yeah, I don't think there's much more to say about those. I have another FO to show you because I haven't shown it to you before, but although I finished them a while ago now and I'd worn them, I'd also been wearing them back in Zurich before we moved. These were the Opal yarn socks that I was knitting on way back when, and I have freshly washed them at least, but they are like they're already a tiny bit longer than my sock blocker, which normally my socks aren't when they're freshly finished. And this was a sock which I just did a wide rib on, so I'm pretty sure these are 6 knit stitches and a purl stitch. Yes, again 7, that's what 56 stitches divides nicely by. And in this case I again did them cuff down, and I again did Mina Phillips mini heel flap adjustment, but this time I did the heel in stocking stitch. I think I just thought I was doing the ribbing on the wide rib on the leg of the sock, and I thought I prefer it to be in stocking stitch rather than garter, or I don't know. Anyway, the other sock is here, and again, these I didn't make any effort for them to be matching. When I finished one sock, I just started and cast on the second one, so they don't match perfectly. And again, for me, I have no problem with that. These are the Bryson or Bryce spun sock blockers. I only have one pair of these. I have tried another type of sock blocker in the past. I really like these ones. I like how they look. I like that they're kind of minimal. I like that actually the sock, if you are blocking them, dries really quickly, because in here it's just open. So really like my sock blockers. All right, those are the sort of true FOs to speak about. Then here I have my Birkin sweater, which I had said that I was going to record or include in my podcast at some point, the modifications that I made. So I think when I last showed this off, it was a couple of episodes back. Sorry, it is a little bit crinkled. I did hang it up in my slightly steamy bathroom, hoping that that might improve things a bit. Maybe it did. Anyway, that I did quite a few, not a ton, but I did some modifications which I feel personally were quite key, certainly for this pattern working for me. I've always said I love this design very, very much overall, but there were some fit issues for some people. This is a design by Caitlin Hunter, also known as Boyland Knitworks. It featured in the second issue of Liner magazine. It is now available. It is also available now as a single purchase, so you can just purchase it from Caitlin Hunter's Ravelry store. And I just think it has a beautiful yoke. I wanted one that looked pretty similar to hers. Hers is knit in Brooklyn Tweed Loft. I have used JC Rennie as 4-ply Super Soft. For those kind of details, I'm just going to say, you can look at my Ravelry project page. There I do also talk about the modifications that I have made, but I know some people prefer to just hear someone talking about them. So I decided that I wanted to knit the small size of this pattern. That would have given me I think a small amount of ease. In the end, I ended up with a slightly looser gauge, so it has more like the dimensions of the medium. That was not necessarily an intentional modification. I'm okay with that, but I did just want to point that out in case, because people ask what size did you make and how much ease do you have and what have you. So I cast on, like the pattern said, I cast on for the small size. I knit everything up to the beginning of the floral part as per the pattern. Then what I did is I actually recharted the floral part. So again, I might put up a photo here of the original Birkin, but it has 3 different colors in this floral part, and it means that there are rows or rounds where you are holding 3 colors at the same time. I knew that for me, or I felt at the time, I'm not saying I would never do it, 3 color work, but I felt that that would be a barrier for me. And I wanted to anyway modify the yoke, because the original yoke has no increases whatsoever in this section. And I knew that I wanted to add some increases in, and so once I was already modifying the yoke chart, I decided to go with just 2 colors here for the flowers. So she has a pink, a yellow, a blue, and then yellow and pink again. So I don't have the yellow basically. I have done the bobbles as per the pattern, so wherever pattern said to have bobbles, do bobbles. I added increases into the chart. I'm not going to share that with you, because in order to be able to do that, I had to have bought the pattern to see how the chart was, and then I was able to rechart it. So I can't share that chart with you. I would never do that. But what it meant, what I can tell you, and also if you have the pattern, she had no increases in this whole section here, and then when you finish this chart, there was an increase round before working the final set of leaves. Okay, I made it so that I basically ended up, give or take a couple of stitches, I think 4 stitches were different. By the time I got here, I already had the stitch count that you would have had at the biggest part of her yoke, which was, for working this last green section. So it just meant that I was adding those increases in throughout the depth of the yoke, so that it was actually accommodating more correctly my shoulders. I also found, and this was not my original intention, that my yoke was deep enough when I got here that if I had carried on and done the colour work, the green colour work, on before separating for the sleeves, I would have had a deeper yoke than I wanted. So I went ahead and I separated for the sleeves before starting that final chart. So I do have the same stitch count on the body of my Birkin as she has for the size that I was knitting. I think what I also decided to do is I just put a few more of the stitches, not many, on the front than on the back, because I don't want to increase the amount of fabric at the back. I don't need that much. I didn't do back shaping on this one, which I would sometimes like to do because I was going for a loose fit, but I still, if I need any extra stitches, better that they're in the front than the back. Okay, so that separation, I wanted to mention one thing about that. That was not originally my intention. I didn't know that I was going to have to do that, because I did look at the depth of the yoke and the theoretical depth of the yoke in terms of the rows, and that was fine. I think an issue that, it's like a double issue that some people have with the Birkin. One is that there is no increases in this section, so you end up with this sort of tube here around your shoulders, which might look okay. On some people, everyone has different body shapes, okay? But a lot of people commented that it was, too tight here, or it restricted their movement. And I knew I would never knit it like that. But the other thing is her row gauge is very short in my opinion. So I think the stitch gauge is 26 stitches and the row gauge is 40. And I was nowhere near a row gauge of 40. I haven't measured this recently, but I was nowhere near the row gauge of 40. And looking at a lot of people's finished garments, it looks like they would not on row gauge. Maybe they got stitch gauge, but they haven't got row gauge. And so with if you don't get a row gauge of 40, if you have, let's say, 34 rows over 4 inches, by the time it compounds this problem, because by the time you get to the end of the floral section, you're also lower than you're supposed to be by what the pattern says. So some people, I think, didn't alter the flowers, but did separate earlier for the sleeves, and that worked for them. It just depends. But overall, I think the final stitch count on this yoke, once you're all done with your colour work, is an appropriate one for a colourwork yoke. The problem is that those increases needed to be up in this section. So that's what I did. The pattern has an A-line design in that you're meant to change needle sizes as you go down here. I didn't do that, so I just knit it straight down, all with the same needle. I did do the split hem, which is in the pattern. And the sleeves, I think, were 3/4 length sleeves in the pattern, and I've made full length sleeves. Sleeves modifications, I do them by looking at the original stitch count. If I was happy with that worked out for me, and then I was just trying them on. I think I stuck with more or less the original sleeve decrease at the beginning, and then I just kept them up, but I did try it on as I was going. So those are the modifications that I wanted to talk about for my Birkin. So the last couple of things that I have to talk about. The first is that we had a yarn giveaway on the last podcast episode that was giving away 4 skeins of yarn from KNITCRATE, because they sent me 2 knit crates last month, because it was 2 months ago now, because I was moving, and I told them I'm moving, don't send me any crates until I have a new address. But they still sent one to my old address, which somehow found its way here, and they sent me one to my new address when I sent them my new address. So I had 4 skeins of a lovely lilac chainette DK alpaca blend yarn. So I've selected a winner for that from the YouTube comments, and the winner is Michelle Brown. So if that is your YouTube name, maybe you comment also below this video so that I see that you've read it, and then choose one of the ways to contact me, so that you can give me your contact information so I can send out that prize to you, whether that be on Ravelry or via the contact form on my website or what have you, just so I can verify that that's you, and I would like to send that out to you. I didn't have a claim on the prize that I announced last episode, so that was again for 4 skeins of KNITCRATE yarn, all in the same base but in 2 different colorways. So maybe if you skipped a video, go back and check that out. Otherwise, maybe I'll have to redraw for that. I have 2 new knit crates to talk about. They are here next to me. Let me just check which one. Okay, so the first one is the knit crate from July. Knit crate comes in these these boxes, they come to you packaged exactly like this, which I find is quite nice and easy to open, because you can just just tape down here so you can cut and open it and know that you're not going to risk to cut into your yarn or what have you, but at the same time they're, you know, protected in the cardboard and not using plastic. So the knit crate from July was this colour, and if you know me, this is really me. It's coming up a bit more blue there, it's a bit more green, so it's coming up just a touch too blue. There's more green in that, so it's more of a true deep teal. This base is the Knitology Glowing Worsted, which is 40% superwash merino, 30% silk, 30% alpaca. It is 137 meters for 100 grams. So it is it's listed as a worsted, and if you look at it, it is more like a worsted made, you know, more Aran. The reason you've got less meters per 100 grams is it's a heavier, denser yarn. That's quite common as you put in silk and alpaca into yarns. So there's an awful lot of drape in this from the silk and alpaca. I love this color very, very much. I think this is still going to go into our prize packages, which is generally what I use the knit crate yarn for, just because I'm trying to be mindful with the things I'm working on right now, to use up yarn that I was really enthusiastic on, or I bought yarn for a specific project, and I think that I generally don't knit that much with alpaca. But we'll see. If something comes along that seems to be the right project for this, I will do that. It did come also with this little progress keeper from Mermaid City Yarn. It is a tiny little ivory. Let me pull one out. So this is Mermaid City Yarn. This is the business card, Never Enough Whimsy. And on the back they have links to their Etsy shop. There you go, and Facebook page. And this is a little progress keeper, and it's got like a little ivory coloured, obviously not made of ivory, that would be horrendous, a little cute ivory coloured elephant and a little turquoise coloured bead on there. So it's a very sweet progress keeper. And you also have the little pattern booklet each time showing you these are the yarns that were included in the different knit crates. So you have the excuse me, they've included in that picture both the yarns from the membership crates and from the stock crates. And here you have various patterns at a glance. As ever, they always, for the membership crate, which is what I've just showed you, they always have both knit and crochet patterns included for the, I really like these mitts actually that they've included. You see there, that's the pattern for those is included. And then they also have on the back page the inspiration for the following month. So knit crate, you know, I always suppose knit crate do send me these knit crates each month so that I can review them and take a look at them. I'm yet to be unimpressed by what knit crates send. The yarn is quality. It's not that, you know, you are getting it at a discount price because it costs $25 a month. That includes shipping internationally. You almost always have two skeins. Occasionally there'll be one skein if it's a really luxurious blend, but then there's extras included. So in terms of value, I think it's great value for money. They do now allow you the option that you can say what kind of colour family you like. The details are all on their website, and you can click on the link, which I will include down below. That is an affiliate link, meaning I get a small, very small percentage. I mean, to be honest, I wouldn't talk about if I got anything from them that I didn't like, I would tell them that I didn't like it and didn't feel comfortable talking about it, or I, you know, always give you an honest review here, and that's always been the case for my whatever I talk about here on my YouTube channel. It's not paid promotion. They're not paying me to insert this stuff into my videos. If I didn't want to do it, talk about it, I wouldn't talk about it. This month is August, and they have sent these glorious skeins this time. So over the year you get a selection of bases, normally a selection of colours. You'll have ones which are tonal, you'll have ones which are more like this, more variegation. This is again a worsted weight yarn, but this is 100% superwash merino, 199 meters for 100 grams. This is the Kestrel colorway. So they were all inspired by birds this month around. I think it's really, really beautiful. I was already imagining for that friend of mine who I knit, a little baby knit, maybe making a beloved hat out of some of this yarn. We'll have to see. Because again, I am separated from my stash at the moment. All of my belongings are in storage because we're not moving everything into this rented apartment because that would be a mess. So, and it also came with a couple of this is their logo, sorry. So it came with a couple of stickers of their logo also. Here is the pattern booklet. And again, I just always like to show what were all the color options that came this month. So you can see this one over here is the membership crate, which is what I am always receiving, which has 2 skeins. They also have the sock membership. The sock, you always just get just 1 skein of sock weight yarn, and it does cost less. I'm not entirely sure what the cost of that is. If you are interested in purchasing anything from KNITCRATE, we do have an ongoing discount code. It is Kingfisher20. I will write it down in the description box below so you can see exactly how that is written. Should you be interested in checking anything out, this is the inspiration page for next month, September. So yeah, as ever, thank you to KNITCRATE. They happily keep us supplied with yarn so that I always have something to share and to give away to you. The final thing that I wanted to talk to you about this week, or I say this week as I record every week, but anyway, this time around is something which did happen this week, which is that SweetGeorgia Yarn Company announced their brand ambassadors, that they opened up this program some point earlier on in the summer, I think. They put a video on their YouTube channel. SweetGeorgia is a yarn company based in Vancouver, Canada. They've been around for a long time now with hand-dyed yarn. They've grown into quite a big yarn company. They supply yarn which is sold in yarn stores all over the world, and they also have their studio. Felicia Lowe, who runs SweetGeorgia, who founded it, she has also done a lot of teaching. So she's made, I know she has a Craft C now blueprint cut course for spinning, which a lot of people speak very, very highly of. And she has written books on dyeing yarn, and they founded the School of SweetGeorgia, an online school for learning about colour and different ways to dye yarn, and spinning and weaving. And this is something I'm going to be able to look into because they were looking for brand ambassadors, and I applied. I applied because I have loved working with their yarn. I have done several designs with them now. I'm trying to think. I have 3, 4, 5 designs with SweetGeorgia, so they are definitely the yarn company I've worked with the most. I have enjoyed every moment of working with them, truly and honestly. They are a lovely team of people. At least, I can speak for the ones that I've met so far, but everybody has been entirely consistent across the company whenever I've had to interact with them. They have very beautiful yarn, always quite special bases. They're very particular about what they use, and their main theme, I would say, is colour. They have glorious colours, and they want to support fibre artists who are making things with their yarn, knitting, crochet, also spinning. They do amazing fibre and weaving. And so they selected 10 different people. 2 of them are a team based in Singapore, so there's sort of 9 different groups, let's say. But they have spinners and weavers and knitters, some people who are knitters and spinners, people who love working with SweetGeorgia and are really keen to continue working with SweetGeorgia. So we'll see what the year holds, but they will be sending yarns for sample and things that I can share with you. There will be, I will get to check out the School of SweetGeorgia, which I'm really looking forward to. So I'll be able to talk a little bit about what they're offering over there. So for people who just want to know a little bit more about things before jumping in, you'll be able to ask me and I can answer questions on that. And I'm really happy about it because they are a company that I really, really believe in and have done ever since I discovered them. The only project that I have with me at the moment that I could show you, knit with SweetGeorgia yarn, is the sample of my Marron shawl, which I designed with one of their Party of 5 mini skein kits in their Tough Love sock, which is their sort of main sock base fingering weight yarn. It is such a lovely fingering weight yarn. I have not made socks with it. It's one of those lovely plump yarns, just like I was talking about before. It is an 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon base, lovely and round, very tightly plied. Again, it's not like any other fingering weight base. It's not exactly like any other fingering weight base I've ever used. And they make these beautiful Party of 5 mini skein sets with 5 skeins, 5 30-gram skeins, which means that is definitely enough to make quite a decent project with. This one was a gradient set, which is the botanical gradient set, but not all of them are gradients. Anyway, and this is a design which I did with them a couple of years back. It's all knit in this beautiful sea foam stitch, playing with the colours, and every single stitch in this shawl is a knit stitch, and it is knit from tip to tip. So you start here, increase, decrease. I mean, I can put it on, it's not quite the right colour for the dress I'm wearing, but that's okay. I knit this so quickly. It's one of the quickest things, if you consider that per yard that you are knitting, this is one of the quickest things I've ever knit. I just found it super easy and fun. And it's one of, as I said, it's one of the designs that I have with SweetGeorgia. So I just wanted to show it off now that I was talking about SweetGeorgia, just because it's the only thing I have currently in my possession. I haven't got any of their yarn, separated from all of my yarn, from most of my yarn, sorry, and my other designs that I've done with them are either packed away in our boxes or are samples that they still have with them because they're bringing with them when they go to shows. Anyway, you will hear more about this in the future, but I just wanted to announce it and say how happy I am and how excited it makes me, because they are a company that really make me excited every time I look at their yarn and the things that they do and the colour and passion that they encourage. One thing I wanted to mention and to recommend anyway I would recommend this is they have a YouTube channel. So Felicia makes videos called Taking Back Fridays, and I really enjoy them. They're not very long videos. She talks about what she's making or about things that she's thinking about making and crafting. It's not just knitting. And one thing that she's always talked about is how to try and find those times for your making, to find those times and how realistic that can be. You know, she has a business. She also has 2 small children. And I like that she talks about real world things. It's not all about everything being polished and perfect. If she did something and she never blocked it, she talks about it. If she wasn't able to finish something because it just wasn't compatible, she says that it's not so curated. Maybe it's the right way to talk about it. And they also have an audio podcast. On that, they always are interviewing makers from around the world, and I found that very inspiring over the years. There are different types of people that they interview. Some very big names as well, from the knitting and fibre industry. She's interviewed over the years, and I always find the questions that she asks to be very interesting, and it's something that has helped me at times when I felt overwhelmed with things that I wish I could make, or blocks of creativity because you just aren't able to either find the time to be making what you wanted to make, or you have the time and you're sitting there and you don't know what to do with it. I mean, I find myself in both of those situations at different times. And she talks a lot about trying to find inspiration from what you're doing, find inspiration from life, get your creativeness out there, and how, if there are tricks or ways that you can find to do that while also having children. I know that that's not applicable to everybody out there. Everyone has are at different stages in their lives, and there are people who don't have children. I get that, but that resonates a lot with me. So I did want to just mention that. That felt super rambly, but I'm afraid that's kind of representative of me, I guess, as a person, and I'm okay with that. I very much hope to be back with an episode sooner. We're beginning to settle into life a bit more here, but there are a lot of things going on. There are so many things. when you move to a new country and a new continent as well, that just take up your time that you had no idea. Anyway, that's where we are for now. I hope that I mentioned everything I wanted to mention, and I wish you all happy knitting, crafting, crocheting, whatever it is that you're doing, and I look forward to coming back to speak to you again as soon as I can. Bye!